All right, so are you ready to dive into this? We're going to be talking about building better habits. And, I think we all kind of want to figure that out, right?
It's so universal, right?
Totally. Yeah, so we've got this really cool episode from Name of Podcast, and it's all about making those changes that last, you know, not just like the ones that fizzle out after a week.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
actually go into like the nitty-gritty science of it, which I thought was really fascinating, like the actual neurology of how habits form.
Okay, see, that's what I'm talking about. I'm already hooked. So what's the deal with this habit loop thing they keep mentioning?
Okay, so picture this. You've got this thing called a cue, and it's like the trigger. It's what kicks everything off. Could be anything, honestly. That first sip of coffee when you wake up or your phone buzzing a clock, maybe even just like a certain feeling you get.
Like a domino effect in your brain or something.
Exactly. And then that cue, it sets off the routine. That's the actual habit you're trying to build.
Okay, so let's say I'm trying to journal more because everyone's telling me to.
All right, so the podcast, they use this example of your morning coffee being that cue.
Yeah.
So you're like, coffee time to jot down some thoughts.
All right, I can see how that would work. So that's the cue and the routine. What's the last piece of this puzzle?
The reward. Gotta have the reward. It's that positive reinforcement. Your brain's like, ooh, that felt good. Let's do that again. So with the journaling, maybe it's that feeling of accomplishment or just like having a clearer headspace for the day.
It's like you're training your brain to crave that good feeling, right? So, okay, I've definitely tried to build habits before and failed miserably. What makes this approach any different?
Well, one thing that really stuck with me was this idea of starting super small,
Yeah.
like ridiculously small. They actually call it the 2-minute rule.
2 minutes. Seriously, it seems a little too
I
easy.
don't know, right? But that's the genius of it. They were saying that it kind of plays on this psychological thing called the Zeigarnik effect. Basically, our brains, they hate leaving things unfinished.
Oh, totally. I'm the worst with that.
Right. So even if you only read for 2 minutes, your brain's going to be like, hold on, we got to finish that later.
It's like you're tricking yourself into building a habit. I love it. So starting small, that helps make it less intimidating, for sure. Any other golden nuggets of wisdom from this episode?
Okay, so they talked about this thing called habit stacking, and it's basically just a fancy way of saying work smarter, not harder. Like you're already doing certain things every day without even thinking about it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like brushing my teeth or, that first cup of coffee in the morning, that's essential.
Exactly. So like, let's say you already make your bed every morning, right? What if you just tacked on like 5 minutes of meditation right after? Boom, you're using that existing habit as a springboard for a new one.
Okay, that's actually brilliant. I can see how that would really work. It's like that don't break the chain thing, but like way more effective.
Right. And the best part is it doesn't have to be this big, massive thing.
Yeah, because who has time for that anyway? But then what about those days when even like 2 minutes feels impossible, Life happens.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I've been there for sure.
Yeah.
That's where this whole idea of consistency over perfection comes in. And the podcasters, they were really emphasizing that.
Okay, so it's not about being perfect all the time.
Exactly. It's more like, are you showing up consistently, even if it's not perfect, even if you don't do it exactly the way you planned it?
So you're saying it's better to just do something even if it's not perfect than to do nothing at all.
100%. They actually talked about this study where they followed these two groups of people who were trying to make exercise a habit, right?
Yeah.
And one group was all about that perfect streak had to be every single day, no excuses.
Okay, I can already see where this is going.
Right. And the other group, they were just focused on showing up consistently, even if it wasn't for like the ideal amount of time.
What happened?
Guess who exercised way more in the long run?
The consistency group.
Bingo. Because they weren't so hard on themselves, Like missing a day didn't mean they completely fell off the wagon.
That's so true. It's like that saying, don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yes, exactly. And another really interesting thing they talked about was this shift from like a goal-oriented mindset to more of an identity-based one.
Identity-based habits. Okay. You're going to have to explain that one because I have no idea what that means.
So it's like this, instead of saying, I want to write a book, you say, I am a writer.
Oh, okay.
You see the difference. It's subtle, but it's powerful because now you're not just chasing some goal in the future, you're actually embodying that identity right now in this moment.
Wow. That's actually kind of deep when you think about it because it changes your whole perspective, doesn't it?
Totally. And it ties into this other concept they talked about, the 1% rule. You heard of that one?
I think so, but remind me.
It's the idea that like small improvements, even just like 1% each day or each week, they add up over time. Like it's kind of crazy how much impact those tiny changes can make.
Yeah, it's like that whole snowball effect, right? You
Yeah,
start small and then boom.
exactly. They actually mentioned this study where they had people improve their diet by just 1% each week. And after a year, their health had changed significantly. Just imagine what we could do if we applied that to like every area of our lives.
Right. That's amazing. But I gotta be honest, even with all this good advice, sometimes I just don't feel like it, you know? Like I need an extra push to actually stay motivated.
Oh, for sure. I totally get that. We all have those days.
Yeah.
But that's where accountability comes in handy. The podcasters talked about how important it is to have someone in your corner, like a friend or a mentor, or even just an app to track your progress.
It's like having a personal cheerleader, someone to keep you on track and remind you why you started this whole thing in the first place. And hey, let's not forget about celebrating the wins, right? Even the
Well,
small ones.
yes, celebrating is so important. It's like giving yourself a little pat on the back every time you stick to your new routine.
So it sounds like we've got a pretty solid game plan here. Understand the habit loop, start small stack. Those habits, consistency over perfection, identity shift, the 1% rule, find an accountability buddy, and celebrate every win like there's no tomorrow.
Exactly. We've cracked the code.
Right. We should write a book. But seriously, folks, this episode has been a gold mine of information, and I feel like we could keep talking about this for hours, but we're going to have to save it for another time.
Definitely. There's always more to explore.
Always. So until next time, keep those habit-forming muscles working, and remember, even small changes can lead to extraordinary results.